Before you buy your next used car in Nigeria, subscribe to Natural Cars because this video might save you money. There are some cars you can buy used in Nigeria for what looks like a good price. You drive it home, you're happy, your friends are happy, you're impressed. Then 2 months later, your mechanic becomes your best friend. The problem with some used car isn't just buying them, it's what happens after you buy them. And today I'm counting 5 cars that I would personally be careful of buying them used in the Nigeria car market. And before you start fighting me in the comments, I'm not saying every single one of these cars are bad. I'm talking about a specific here and common problems that can turn a cheap car into a very expensive mistake. And trust me, number 1 is the one I'll be most scared of. Let's start with the one that might surprise you, the Toyota Venza. Yes, Toyota. Now before the Toyota people start typing, the Venza isn't a terrible car. In fact, that's exactly why people buy them. They see the Toyota badge and think Toyota, no problem. But when you're buying one used, especially an older one, you still need to know what you're getting yourself into. Some Venzas have reported issues involving the oil leak, oil consumption, steering noises, suspension components, and the drivetrain. And here is the problem in Nigeria. A lot of used cars have already lived several lives, before coming to you, and you don't know how well they were maintained previously. So you could buy a Venza thinking it's a Toyota, so I'm safe. Then 6 months later, you're asking your mechanic,
"Oga, how much is this repair?"
And suddenly that reliable Toyota doesn't feel so much reliable anymore. Moving on to the 4th on the list, we have the Peugeot 508, popularly pronounced as Peugeot in Nigeria. Honestly, when you see a clean 508 on the road, they look so good and the interior looks so premium. The ride is comfortable, everything feels good, and sometimes you find them for a little money, and that's exactly where the traps begin, because the purchase price can be so attractive, but maintenance can tell a completely different story. Older 508s can develop electrical problems, aircon issues, window faults, and suspension problems. The problem isn't that the 508 is a bad car, is that a neglected 508 can become a money pit very quickly. You might buy one for a price that makes you say, oh, this is a steal, but sometimes it's not a steal. You're just buying someone else's problem at a discount. 3rd on the list is the Ford Edge. This is one of those cars that can look like an absolute bargain on the Nigeria used car market. Big SUV, comfortable interior, but there's a reason you need to inspect this very carefully. Some 2011 to 2014 Edge models have reported problems involving electronics, suspension, steering, and certain engines have some nasty issues involving the water pump. And here is why the water pump issue can be very, very disturbing. On certain V6 engines, the water pump is located inside the engine. So when the water pump fails, so it isn't just change the water pump and you're good. A failure can potentially lead to mixing of coolant with oil, which might lead to engine very bad. So imagine buying a used Edge because it was cheaper than the Toyota or Lexus that you wanted, and then your mechanic tells you, "Oga, the engine needs to come out." That's when the word cheap disappears instantly. So if you're buying a used Edge, don't just check whether the car starts. You have to check properly. You have to make sure you diagnose, use a proper car scanner, and make sure you're buying a good one. The 2nd on the list is the Nissan Murano. This one, I already know some Nissan owners are getting angry, but hear me out. The Murano is actually a very nice SUV, very comfortable, very spacious, feels like a luxury car. But the problem is the CVT. Certain Muranos have a history of transmission and the CVT problem, and if you've ever driven a car with a dying CVT, you know the experience. You accelerate, the RPM rises, the car doesn't move the way it should. You are just sitting there thinking, please don't let this be the transmission, because transmission repairs are not exactly what you want to discover after buying a car. And this is why I'll be very careful buying a used Murano without a proper inspection. Don't just take it for a 5-minute test drive. Check how the transmission behaves when it's cold, when it's hot. Look for hesitation. You need to take someone that understands cars to help you do a proper inspection. Check everything you need to check to make sure you're getting the best for your money, because spending money on a proper inspection before buying the car is much more better than spending money repairing it after. The 1st on the list, which you have been waiting for, is the Range Rover Evoque. Now I know what you're thinking, bro, why are you putting a Range Rover at number 1? Because I'm talking about buying used. A brand new Evoque under a warranty is one thing. A heavily used, well maintained Evoque in Nigeria, that's completely a different story. The early generation of Evoque has had reported problems involving the electronics, the gearbox, the engine, and also the suspension. And that's dangerous because these components are not cheap, they are expensive. You can have a beautiful Evoque sitting outside your house looking like you just made it. Meanwhile, the car is quietly preparing to destroy your bank account. And that's the biggest lesson with buying a used luxury car in Nigeria. The cheaper the car gets, the more suspicious you should become. I'm not saying you should avoid every single one of these cars. A properly maintained example with good history can be a completely different story. But if you're buying one used in Nigeria, you have to get the car scanned, check the engine, check the transmission, check the suspension, the electronics, and most importantly, have an experienced mechanic inspect the car very well, before you pay, because the cheapest car to buy isn't always the cheapest car to own. And if you want more car advice like this, don't forget to like the video, leave a comment down below, share the video, and also subscribe to my YouTube channel. And I will see you in the next one.